Hello, welcome to the WholeHearted podcast. Today's conversation is with John W. Gehring, author of Tales of Love and Service, Stories from the Heart. John has worked on service, education, and sports programs in more than 60 countries. His stories from the heart explore the everyday lives and challenges of parts of humanity that are often overlooked. John hopes his experiences will inspire you on your life's journey to transcend the things that divide us and discover new connections and friendships. We hope you enjoy.
Hello, my name is Heather Thalheimer. I'm a co-founder of WholeHearted. WholeHearted is a community for personal growth. We help people stop obsessing over achieving more and start living from a place of wholeness. And we do it together. It's in that spirit of doing life together that I've invited a good friend of mine, John Gehring, author of Tales of Love and Service, Stories from the Heart, into a wholehearted conversation. So welcome, John.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you, Heather, for inviting me and letting me connect wholeheartedly with more people.
Oh, yeah. It's our pleasure to have you on the show today. So we are here today to talk about your newly released book, Tales of Love and Service, Stories from the Heart. I've been very moved by you over the years, John, because I've known you through various service projects. And I got to say that I've been moved because I see how transformed your own heart has been through the projects, the service projects that you've participated in. You know, you always come across as someone who is so sincere, and most importantly to me, so humble. Like one of the important things for me is to break down the barriers between people. And I've seen you do that over and over again, not just here in America in service projects, but all around the world. So this book is just a delight for me to read and to experience. And you know, just for our listeners, I want to read out some of the chapter titles because they immediately drew me in, like, what is that chapter about? For instance, there's one chapter called Buckets of Teeth, or Death as a Less Terrible Alternative. And I hope you can speak about that one today, because that was really, I was thinking about the content of that chapter for days after I read it. Our human family, the heart of wanting to be together. Another chapter, This is Why I Hate You. And, you know, that's such a kind of stark title for a chapter, but so important if we want to build connection between people. We have to start with where we're at. Another chapter, A Dream Deferred but Not Forever, or The Man Who Spoke with His Shovel, and The Politics of a Mother's Heart, Mama Betty style. You know, you have such intriguing chapter names. It just caused me to like dive in. And I have to confess, John, I didn't read this book in a linear way. I didn't start at the beginning and finish at the end. I was like, I got to read this. I got to read that. So each story has so much to think about. And I'm thinking as the author, like, what's a story that jumps out for you in this book?
You know, one story I really enjoyed was the 1 cups of coffee, dealing with, and the reason, this was a story that took place in a refugee camp or displaced people's camp. Basically, the UN ran it in Croatia, which was at war at that time in the southern Croatia with Bosnian and Croatian refugees. People were fighting. Families were split apart. They were moving, and they didn't know if their members were dead or alive, those that stayed behind. So it was that kind of a nervous situation. And we were in a refugee camp, and it was almost all old people or very young people. You're looking around, and where's the people, where are those strong younger people, young adults? They were still at home because they were defending their homes and from possible attack. And the people in the camp, they didn't know if they would ever see their family again, the other family members, the father, the eldest son, those kind of people in their family. And the kids, the young people, they were college students mostly. They're around 19, 21 years old. And they came and they're wondering, what am I going to do? These people have suffered so much. They've gone through so many. What can I give? I mean, I could paint a room. I could do some external things, but I don't think I'll be able to relate with these people because they've no life in a way that as a young person, I don't. So that was the conversation as we began the project at this refugee camp. But we spent that time at the camp. We ate with people. We basically spent all the time there with with the refugees, who we just looked at as try to make a relationship. We couldn't speak very much, but our actions had to speak. And people were sincerely trying their best. You had a big room that 15 families lived in. So how can you make that more livable? And how can you fix the toilets? And how can we make a little classroom out of this area so the kids have some place to go and learn? So as our group worked on this project, it was, a day would pass and another day, and then some old lady, she looked old, but she probably wasn't so old because her life experience made her look the way she did.
Uh-huh.
She came up to me and she said, do you want a cup of coffee? Do you want some coffee? And I said, yes. And my friend Adam was with me. And Adam said, yes, we'd like a cup of coffee. And the lady went away to make the coffee. But we couldn't speak directly. We didn't speak each other's language, but Adam happened to look. He was part Turkish. Actually, he was Turkish. And there is a mixture of Bosnian. The Turks controlled that part of the world. So this Adam happened to resemble her son in some way. So she felt a deep connection to Adam. We waited and they took time. I didn't realize how long it would take to make the coffee. And we had a break going on at that time, but the time for the break was over. So everybody else went back to work to have their break somewhere else, have a snack, have that away from where we were. So what happened was Adam and I waited, and she came out with this big pot of coffee. And Turkish coffee, it's really, really strong. It's these little cups. So we went through a ritual. We've decided, Adam and I looked at each other, that we were going to drink this for representing the whole team. So we went through one cup, the other. And while we're going through this process, the lady starts to talk and she starts to share. And then her neighbor brings out another coffee pot because she anticipated that the whole group would be there. So we had to go through 2 coffee pots of this coffee. We didn't have to, but the beauty of it was she started talking about, we haven't seen our husbands and we haven't seen our son and in months, but we feel that we haven't heard from them, but we feel they're alive. We feel they're alive. And she started sharing. They started talking as much as they could communicate. And we finished the coffee. We paid the consequences for it with our digestion later, but they warmed up from the give and take, from being able to receive their love.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh, we made the coffee and nobody cared. We gave it to them, and then they could share their heart. And then they began to share more with other participants. And we went through that ritual, and then every day they ended up bringing their coffee. They had meager rations there. I mean, it was hard to get a full meal. But what happened through that process is that the last day they made a cake for us to celebrate our time there. And the one woman goes, we thought everybody had left. Everybody forgot about us. people come and they bring things, but they just put it at our doorstep and leave, whether we need it or not. They bring it. There's some companies have extra this or that. They, okay, we'll give it to the refugees and we'll make it a tax write-off. But you stayed with us. You ate with us. You communicated with our children. We could forget about the war. This was the first time we could forget about the war.
Wow.
So if you're a 21-year-old college student who's just come because you wanted to do something good, and you have these people turn around and talk to you and say, you made us forget about our suffering, the cause of our suffering and pain. You gave us a hope. You showed that we were not forgotten. That was really, that was behind the coffee cups. It was worth the diarrhea, whatever. So little times it seems insignificant to accept somebody's offering, but it was their heart, and then we were able to answer our self-doubt. So many young people, we came there, and I wasn't so young then, but we all came and we had self-doubts. Is this going to work? Is this going to be good? And to have it be able to be confirmed with those words, we forgot about the war. We realized we weren't abandoned. We had hope. That's precious. I don't know if it came across in the writing, but that's a little bit of the story behind the story.
That's beautiful to hear that. And also the emphasis, it's all about relationship, because, we can give things, but, what lasts forever is relationship. And I'm sure that those people still remember you as you remember them. It's beautiful.
And a wonderful thing was, within a year, the fighting had stopped and they could go back home. Now, who was alive and what the situation was, but they were able to go back home. There was peace.
Fortunate. Wow. Oh, can you tell me a little bit about the story, Death is a Less Terrible Alternative? Because that's
a heavy one.
That's a heavy one, but sometimes it's good to be heavy. We have to think about life, and it's easy, cocooned in our own reality, not to think about life. And that's one of the things I so appreciated about this book is, there were stories of hope and joy, but also there were stories that caused me to confront, what's going on in people's lives right now, and to actually embrace like that, think about that, be part of that. We're part of it, but we just aren't in touch with the fact that we're part of it. So if you could share a little bit of that story, that would be great.
In that first part of the book, or second chapter, there's a lot of stories that deal with what I call Lady Poverty. And that's the kind of, it unveils her face of how many starving children, how much suffering, disease, and different things exist, and how Lady Poverty, poverty can stop people's lives and just put them in a box. So this story opened my eyes. This was my first international service project, RYS. I went to the Philippines. We stayed in a village, and in that village there was Muslims and Christians, and mostly Christians, but the Muslims lived on the other side of the river. And we were building a little bridge with the technical university's students to connect both sides of the river, so kids could go to school easier, and they could have more access to each other. And in that process, while we were working, we had a group, and that site was maybe 20 nations. Our volunteers were from 20 nations. We were Sikh, we were Muslim, we were Christians, we were Jews, we really were the world there. And so the village is kind of, where did these people come from? How come they're coming here from Bangladesh or from India and doing this work? But while we were doing our work, we enjoyed coffee breaks or breaks with snacks and food, and kids would hang around. Kids from first from the Christian side because it was closer, but then kids from both sides started hanging around watching us because we were such a curiosity. So this story was about some of those children really stayed around because we had some snacks, and they, we were friendly and we let them go, but some were really kind of abandoned kids, and we didn't understand what their real situation was. But we heard from one couple of our participants like to go into the little community and talk to the mothers and really find out what was going on. And we found out this one family, the kids, they used to come and watch us, but they were really struggling with hunger. And we found out about that, but we found out like after hearing that the mother's child had died of hunger. And we all reacted with shock because this was a couple of 100 yards away. We have somebody starving to death while we're doing this and that and having our meals. And the kind of thing that happened in a response was, well, we went to the wake. We all gathered and we wanted to say goodbye. And we had one person was from Burkina Faso. He was a strong Christian, and he felt that, Jesus prayed to raise the dead. I could pray and raise this child from the dead. If I really have faith, I can do it. So we're at the wake, and he asked to pray for this child. And he's praying in French, and he's praying fervently, and it's hot, and there's all these people crowded in this little room, and he's praying to raise the child from the dead. And we're some of us go, well, I don't think this is going to happen.
Right.
What can we say?
Yeah, absolutely.
But the key part was he's praying, and then he turns around and he asks the child's mother, can I continue to pray? And the mother says, no. And the room turns silent.
Wow.
Why? He asks, can I pray? No. Because if he comes back again, if he comes to life, there's still no food. And then we found the story behind the story. The mother, to keep the baby from crying from stomach pains, would moisten newspaper and give the baby some moistened newspaper to dull the pain of hunger.
Wow. Wow.
So we were shocked. All of, kind of our worldviews just, boom, got knocked out. This is the reality where a mother who should have so much hope and look at a child for this is the hope of the future. This is the blessing they have. So many things they can experience in life, love, marriage, their own children. Instead, I just hope his misery ends.
Mm-hmm.
That's, that is the reverse of what it should be. That's Lady Poverty.
Yeah.
The killer. So, if you're coming from Germany and the United States and you hear this you see this and experience it, your concept of money changes. Your concept of, do I really need this? Do I need that? And a level of appreciation, at least it's in your mind that wasn't there before.
Mm-hmm.
This is, so they kind of knocked us for a loop, that's for sure. But, yeah, so that's the story, a little bit of the story behind the story there.
It really impacted me. I thought about that for days. And, you understand a parent's heart is to want their child to live, but then a parent's heart is also, I don't want my child to suffer. And to know the suffering of that child that she experienced every day as she fed him.
And the tragedy is it wasn't just there. It was in so many other villages, so many other countries, and wake up. This is reality. What can we do? What is my responsibility? It's not, if I can't help that one, who can I help? What can I do to make it a little bit, better, this world?
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that story. Another thing I appreciate about that story is it really expressed who, you mentioned RYS, Religious Youth Service. who Religious Youth Service is, because it brings together people from all over the world, different religious and cultural traditions. And even that's part of the experience, because you know, you need to break down those barriers. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with RYS?
Oh, they're all different ones. The first image that pops up in my mind is this Sikh participant in the Philippines. And we had one young Christian or church member who wanted the Sikh not to carry his knife, and he wanted to him to have his hair cut because he thought this was the proper way to look. And then the Sikh explained to him, you know, the significance of these things.
Yeah.
And as you watch the Sikh participants throughout the project, they set such a good example of hard work and really their love for God and their love for family. But we had to open up our minds and hearts to that looks were not what decided who we were. We're with a Bangladesh doctor who's making the bridge, and yet he's a doctor back home, but he's coming to this place to serve the poor people here. He's a Muslim doctor, and then we saw Palestinian and Israeli Jews and Arabs come together. They couldn't come and have these conversations or these experiences back home, but we had a neutral place for them to really learn who they were, who each other was. Part of our situation is we're put into boxes wherever we are at. You know, if you're living in a white community and you go to a Black community, or if you're living in an integrated community and you go to an all something community, you feel kind of some dissonance.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, if you're working together for some purpose, this is the phenomena that happened. People came together. The first feeling you have in your heart is you want to embrace everybody. Oh, this person's from this part of the world. I never knew anybody from Palau. I never knew anybody from Czechoslovakia. But then after the embracing feeling, you go, but the guy doesn't clean his socks. His underwear is on his bed and it smells. You know, like, you know, how are we going to live together? This meeting was supposed to start on time at 8 o'clock, and it's 8:25, and they're walking in like it's you know, on time. They don't have the same concept of time, whoever they are. You know, so we start noticing these, and then there becomes a tension, you know, between living together. But what keeping our focus on two things, like our original reason to come, often it was because of our faith and our love for God, love for humanity, we're here. And also our task. Our task is to help these people. We're supposed to build a medical clinic. If we don't work together, it's not going to get done. So that other person is also working on that project. We need each other, and we're working together to do something. And we all want to see it accomplished. And when it is accomplished, we all share in that victory, that feeling. So a lot of things got broken down through the working, sleeping together, eating together, and then sit and talk. Why do you, that one chapter is called, and this is why I hate you. This is what happened with Belial and Ezra. Just Ezra is trying to make some kind of conversation with Belial, and who's from Jordan, and he gets all these short, curt answers, like, I don't want any part of you. And finally, Belial says, Ezra asked Belial, do you hate me? And Belial said, yes, I hate you. And this is why. And for like a half an hour, he's telling, this is what you did to my people. They lived in what his dad lived in, what is today Israel. You know, you drove them out, you did this and that. And the kind of conceptions and reality of their growing up now was faced with a new reality. They were roommates and they were working on something together. How is this going to work? These two are going to be at their throats and killing each other by the time the project's over. But they both were very responsible men, and they both worked to the best. Belial, when he worked, this is my offering to God, doing this kind of service, and Ezra is trying to help people. So over time, as time passed, we spent 6 weeks together. And at the end, we have a reflective time. And we went to a pilgrimage. We went to a pilgrimage for St. Francis in Assisi, Italy.
Oh, wow.
And while we're there, in St. Francis had actually made an outreach to the Mideast, to the Muslim countries, and he tried to make bridges between Islam and Christianity. While we were in Assisi, we asked the Catholic priest, is it okay? Our group is from all these religions. And you could see this one's wearing a yarmulke. This one,
Yeah.
Is this okay? And he said, no, this is what Francis wanted. This was Francis's dream. So we're carrying our candles, 120 people from all different, 36 countries, all different faiths, and celebrating this kind of one heartness, sharing one heart. We got into the village square of Assisi, and we started, we had Reverend Al started singing, "We are the children of the living God." And he's singing this, and all of a sudden we start going around in a circle, dancing. And our RYS people are dancing in the middle of the square in Assisi. And then the villagers come in and they're dancing. We are the children of the living God, And they're singing and dancing. And when the song ends, they're jumping up, they continue, and they're jumping up and down. They just feel the love and the unity. And
Wow.
it was later that night, it's when I talked to Ezra, and Ezra said, Bilal and I, we never could have done this back home, but actually we became not just friends, we became brothers through this experience together.
Yeah, good. You're kind of free, like outside of your environment, more free maybe to embrace something that's different. I'm really curious, John, like as a person of faith yourself, how has working with RYS impacted your own individual faith, or has it? I'm sure it has, but
I had one experience. I have one friend, Devendra. He was with me in the Philippines, and we worked together in other countries. But I work hard, and I think I'm doing so good, and it's 11 o'clock at night, and I make a quick peek into the chapel, and there's Devendra meditating, getting ready for the next day. And then the morning early, he go by when we're just starting to get moving, and Devendra's there thinking, praying, being who he is.
Yeah.
And I got to be more like Devendra. And then I'm sure other people, we look at good examples, role models, and they're not from our group. They're from somewhere else. What makes them so good? What makes them, I want to know more about them. Every morning we started with a worship, but we worshiped, each participant could, if they were Muslim, they'd lead us in some kind of morning service together. And then the next day it would be from Israel, or it would be the Hindu, or it would be the Buddhist. So we can learn something about where they were coming from, and in one sense, taste a little bit of their experience, or at least begin to recognize the symbols behind it.
Yeah.
Understanding symbols is really important. I mean, you look at, say, there's some Indian art, and it's like, what the heck is this? And then, oh, this is what this stands for. And this is why the elephant is doing this. And this is why, then, oh, okay, they didn't, the regular people in that time, they weren't educated in school. So the art spoke to them the message. This was the language. The way they could teach was through temple art and things like that. Anyway, there's so much we can discover through others that all of a sudden our God becomes greater. As the Muslims have like 99 words for God. God is greater than this, God is greater than that. For me, I would leave every project knowing that God is greater. His love is greater, his care, his compassion, his creativity, all these things. God is greater. You think this is good? There's something even greater behind it.
Wow. Yeah, that's very profound. Thank you for sharing that. One chapter that stood out for me is the heart of wanting to be together. And that's a beautiful chapter. And I could really connect to that chapter because I'd done my own service work on the island nation of Vanuatu, which is in the South Pacific. And it's at that time especially, you could go to the capital, but you couldn't visit beyond the capital except with some kind of special permission, because they tried to keep the island peoples kind of, keep their privacy, keep their way of life, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had incredible experiences. We were doing service projects, but I realized through an experience at the airport after leaving Vanuatu that the most profound impact I had made was actually on my own way of being, my own heart. I was there for 6 weeks. My family was back home. I had 2 little children. And when I flew from Vanuatu to LA, there was a 12-hour layover that I hadn't anticipated. There'd been a delay because of weather in Chicago. And so I was stuck in an airport for 12 hours. Now, while I was in Vanuatu working with the people of Vanuatu, who have a very distinct look, characteristic as a people, I'd worked hard. I'd tried to kind of push down all my longing to be home and see my kids and just invest in the project. But when I was suddenly faced with this 12-hour period in the airport with nothing but longing to be home, it was kind of like that moment where you kind of, fall apart, as it were. And I was really like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I went into a lounge and I was just sitting in the lounge, having some refreshments. And there were a couple of guys up at the bar who were they turned around. They were clearly, from their facial features, from Vanuatu. And when I saw them, it's like my heart leapt in the way that your heart leaps when you see a lover. Like in my heart, I really felt like my heart leapt to see them. And in that moment, I realized I'd built a bridge between myself and a people of another nation that before I didn't care about because I didn't know them. I didn't have any contact. I didn't know them as people. And yet by doing that time in Vanuatu and then coming back, and it's true today, if I ever see anyone who looks vaguely like someone from Vanuatu, it's like my heart leaps. And through that, I understood the power of service to break down barriers between people and how important it is that we enter into each other's lives, not necessarily because I've so much more and I've stuff to give to you, although on a material level, that is often the case. But it's as a human being, I want to encounter you. I want to know who you are. I want to experience you as a brother or sister. And the person that I was connected to in the service project there, he kind of reminds me of you a little bit because he spent so many years in service to peoples in, Southeast Asia. And, that spirit is there once you've really met people on a totally different level. I wanted to read, if you don't mind, I have to find it, just a quote from your book, which really struck me. You said, as my experience in India have many times reminded me, it is often the young, spiritually minded believer who can best grasp that all are valued members of one human family. That commonality is beyond any specific religious identity, since it points to a transcendent source, a source that we are all connected to. And then later on, you went on to say, a crisis can trigger substantial personal reflection. I do recognize that is true. You said, our meeting during a time of social turbulence in India provided an atmosphere where each participant could more seriously examine their own lives. And this particular quote really struck me because I felt like we're at that time in America too. There's so much turbulence. Yes. There's so much division and suffering, and talk about lady poverty. Lady poverty doesn't just live in other countries. Lady poverty lives here in the US. And I just wondered what your thoughts are for service in the United States, and the role that it could play at this time. Everyone's been so separated by COVID as well. And I think even being separated during COVID has caused people to self-reflect. I was helping with a kids camp this summer, and I noticed that compared to other years, more children presented actually with anxiety and depression than in prior years. And I thought that's really a reflection of COVID. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on the role of service to address some of the issues in America at this time.
I think it's absolutely necessary. I mean, how can we heal without service? We expect the government to heal us? How are we going to heal? We have to get out of ourselves and really have relationships with others. And a service can do that if we have something that's more important than us, some cause. Okay, there's children in a children's hospital. They would love to have music. Okay, let's create something for them. Where are we going to get from? Well, let's get the voices, let's ask for volunteer singers, or ask if we have a need, and people will respond as long as we get the word out. It's almost like, I'm sorry, what I want to say is in the United States today, even having a project would have Republicans and Democrats working together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even on a simple level, like something that's bigger than your politics. My political views are so different than a lot of my closest friends that I've worked with together on RYS. We live together, we work together, we serve together. We don't have to have the same political viewpoints, but you see, we share a heart, and that heart is bigger than our differences. And actually, maybe you know something that I don't know, and maybe I have something to give you that you're not aware of. And I think there's no absolutely wrong or absolutely correct side. We have something to learn from the others, and there's kind of like a middle way that draws from both left and the right. And compassionate service can be great, but if the service is not leading to something that's great, then it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing great work. I feel like in America today, it's like anger, and you did this, or this kind of resentment, or starting to classify people by skin tone. Everybody looks like you say in there. You saw somebody who reminded you of the place where your heart was, Vanuatu.
Vanuatu.
We need to, in America today, statistically, Muslims and Christians, a lot of times they're not talking. They're not even talking. So let's go to an imam, and let's go to a priest and a minister, and let's go to a Sikh leader and ask, can we have some of your young people? Can we work on in this community here, because there's a need? Can we work together? I think the religious community is falling short. I don't care what title you wear. Are we working with the others? Showing that we're not really, God so loved the world. Everybody's in this world. And no matter if you're religious or not religious, there's a need. How can we take care of those that are hurting? Is there a way we can do it? And if we do it together, it's much more powerful than doing it separately.
Right.
So it's great to get your own personal experience, but when we work together, all of a sudden we learn from each other, and we grow, and we become more creative, we bring better results. So we as a country are not bringing the kind of result to the world that we want to show the world. How can we bring the result that comes from working together, cooperating, living to our highest ideal? Our highest ideal is not material ideal. It's not we're great because we're rich.
Yeah.
We got to be great because we're good. So whatever title you want to wear, whatever, I'm this race or this religion or this culture. No, I want to see who you are by what you do, how you treat others. So I think, in a sense, people leaving churches because leaving their religions often because they don't see relevance. If you want the people to come back, you have to be relevant, and it's not simply relevant politically. It's deeper. It's relevant by living, I would call it like a Christ-like life,
Mm-hmm.
where you can be really, you can wash the feet of your disciples. Are we washing are we doing that kind of thing of washing their feet of those that that are different? I mean, are we even shaking hands? The story in India was there was riots going on in other parts of town, and we had a group where they were Hindu and Muslim and other faiths, and they were talking and sharing, and they were so happy to be able to share with each other. And they were so excited. They knew it was dangerous once it got dark to go home, but they didn't want to go home. They just wanted to keep on sharing that kind of excitement.
Mm-hmm.
So my idea is that for years, we hear complaints about how this inner city is this way or this. Let's have people from the inner city and from the suburbs work together, step one, then have them go to reservations and work with our Native American brothers and sisters and learn about their culture, receive wisdom from their culture, and then be able to offer what we can from our heart and care. And we start making bonds and build relationships and end the loneliness in people's lives. Young people can be so lonely.
Right.
But where are they going to get the support they need? From a gang? Or are we as good men and women going to go out and work together, share and learn?
Mm-hmm.
We are a family. We are family. We may have some brothers and sisters that are a little bit better or a little bit smarter, or a little bit this and a little bit that different, but we're one family and
Right.
we come from the same source. So how can we show that, demonstrate it with our lives? So I have a lot of good friends from all different religions, all different cultures, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And we're having an alumni meeting on next week. So like we're getting worldwide, we're doing a virtual alumni meeting with these people that first over 30 years of service projects, 35 years, we were doing it every year. So we're getting together, trying to put together on our own a virtual alumni meeting next Saturday, next Sunday.
That will be some meeting. I'm so excited for you, John, and for all you do and all you've contributed over the years, and also for the wisdom that you've shared with us today, because just in the passion that you speak and your heart, I can tell that this isn't just an intellectual idea about service, or it's not coming from a place of this is a good strategy, but it's really coming from the heart. So I'd like to ask you in closing, it's a question we ask every guest. What does it mean to you to be wholehearted or to live wholeheartedly?
You may get a little one-track minded. I mean, for like 10 years when I was really doing RYS, people were like, can you talk about something else? And then I had one close friend, I mean, just kept on talking to Carol Povets, this one wonderful sister. You really, this experience of working together with different people. And she said, yeah, John, that's your thing. I have my thing. I do my art. I do this. Then she went to a project, and then she got the same kind of excitement, and then she shaped it in her image. She does art projects with service through art and through different kind of things that come from her heart. So losing yourself into something is a liberation to be able to do that. And of course, for me, it's rooted in the family. I went away from my kids a lot during those times. So God has a way of getting back. So I'm a grandfather, and I've been living for the last, we had 5 grandkids, and since the first one was born, we've been living with our grandchildren, moving from one mama to the other mama's house and living with them. but it's a chance. I spend more time with their kids than they do. So it's a
Wow.
time
Yes.
I miss birthdays, I miss this, I miss that. So I'm getting a chance to give.
Yeah.
And then I find being a grandparent, it's almost like the completion of love for me at this stage of my life, like some level of heart, because you're like God in a sense. God can't jump in everybody's life and manage you like a parent, because you have parents, because they're like God to the children. In a sense, there's where's God? God is your mama and your daddy when you're a baby. But God's like a grandfather. He's sitting on the couch. If you really need him, he'll get off the couch and he'll offer some words of advice. But you need your mama and papa. So I feel like as a grandparent, I'm not the mama and papa, but I can see their joy and I can experience their love and struggles and challenges through the loving my children and the grandchildren. It's beautiful. You see, it's a beautiful place to be in life.
Wow.
So,
I'm sure as a grandparent, there's zero feeling of one grandchild over the other. It's really an expression of heart of like, I love everybody, which, as you say, is kind of like God's heart.
Yes. And that's a lot of love, a lot of differences in each one. Yeah, it's great.
Well, that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today. And I really encourage all our listeners to get your book, Tales of Love and Service, Stories from the Heart by John Gehring. And it's on
W.
Amazon.
Gehring, because there is another author, John Gehring. So
okay.
A religious author too.
John W. Gehring, and it's on Amazon. And I'm sure they'll be happy to deliver it by tomorrow. So
everyone, thank you very much for listening, and I'm glad to be part of your extended family.
oh, thank you so much, John. Appreciate it.